And I titled this The Whole Megillah because it's an expression we use when we want to tell the whole story, right? It's like, you know, as women, we like to talk, most of us. And you know how sometimes the men in our lives, they don't want to really hear the whole story. And, you know, they're like, you don't have to tell me the whole Megillah, okay? Get to the point. But because we're only ladies here, I have the liberty to share the whole Megillah. And we can go off on rabbit trails and we can just have fun, right? And I always say, if I go too far off on a rabbit trail, just haul me back, because sometimes I don't even know where I've gone and you got to get me back somehow. But it all works out in the Lord. So, okay, so these are just, you've seen we brought some of our materials here today, but just enough that would fit in a little carry-on. So there's more online. This one on the Jewish roots of the Christian faith was done many years ago, so you'll see I look a lot younger. But it's still everybody's favorite as far as just an introduction to this whole thing. For a Christian person that doesn't really understand why you're acting so strange, and why are you into all this Jewish stuff, all that. So that's kind of, that I think was one of our favorite meetings. And then about Israel, and we're really focusing today on Purim. So the book, and there's also a DVD. And today, if you want to get the book and DVD, we're going to put it together as a special for $30 for both. Okay? So, I don't know. We're Jewish, we have to give you a special. So, all right. So, we know that Purim is coming up in a very few days. So this was just a sign from Israel. I wanted to show you just a few pictures from Israel. This was a sign, you know, as Purim comes up, the kids started getting really excited, and my grandkids are picking out their costumes and already, and they have, you know, the baskets, the Purim baskets set up everywhere for you to buy and give everybody. And you probably heard about that terrible incident that happened. We lived in Ariel, and we had a ladies group, the ladies that were praying for us, and there's one of the ladies in that group, her son saw a basket at his door at Purim time and picked it up, thought it was, you know, shlach manot, picked it up and it exploded in his hand. And he almost died, but by a miracle he survived. Ami Ortiz, so Leah Ortiz was in Our Lady's Turgo. So the thing about Purim is it's such a happy holiday of celebration, but like most Jewish things, underneath it is always this element of sorrow and danger and the battle, you know. And I don't know about you guys, I have found that almost every single time as I'm approaching Purim and even into Purim, I find myself really battling with sorrow and tears and sometimes even depression. And then I start like, why? And I think it's because we are commanded to rejoice at the time of Purim. And at the same time, this is when the spirit of Amalek was attacking, when Amalek was attacking Israel. And so this is it's at a time when our emotions of joy are being attacked. You know, and we have to battle, like we talked about yesterday, that those words for sacrifice and for battle are very much related. Because sometimes we got to battle for that joy. There's times when we've got to battle to smile and to laugh and to keep our joy and to say, no, you're not going to, this is Purim. You're not going to steal it from me. I'm going to rejoice and be glad in Purim. So here's a few pictures from Israel. Who do you think is on the left? That is Liat. This is... That was Liat, and I have some other old pictures of her as Queen Esther. She was Queen Esther every year. Oh, I couldn't find them. And the girl on the right was just another little Queen Esther. And there's so many little Queen Esthers running around Israel every year at the time of Purim. They're so sweet and so cute. And as you know, people don't always dress up in biblical costumes. So here is, I don't know who, these were just kids at school. On the left, I took a picture of them. And on the right is Liat now as a cowgirl, Avi, my son, as SpongeBob, and my little grandson, Aden, as, is that Peter Pan? Right, so you get to see some of my other kids and grandkids there too, because I'm a baba, I gotta show them off somehow. And here's Liat and I at Purim, and with another girl at our Purim retreat at our congregation. We usually go away for Purim somewhere and have a congregational retreat, and we have a dance, and we have a lot of fun seeing everybody in their ridiculous costumes. We have one guy from India who came over they brought him over as an orphan from India, the Jewish agency, and he dressed up as Gandhi in this orange saffron thing, and he kept offering people baklava pastries and saying, "Oh, I'm tired of this hunger fast. Have a baklava." It was just ridiculous. People have a lot of fun. Do you remember that I told you about Timothy in my testimony? Well, there he is, about 17 years old, as Peter Pan. And there he is with the young lady that eventually became his bride, Tinkerbell. Here's a Peter Pan Chassid. Love it, love it. Santa Chassidim. Purim in Mea Sharim. Spider-Man at the cocktail. And as I said, we've got this great joy, and at the same time, it's under guard. Here's Purim in Hebron, where they have to have guards, and they're reading the Megillah, Esther, under guard with their rifles at hand. There it is, the whole Megillah. So I'm going to think about you guys reading your Megillah on Purim as we read ours, and praying that we will have great joy in this wonderful celebration. So this is the theme of most Jewish festivals. It's really very, very simple. They tried to kill us. We won. Let's eat. Not much more we have to say about that. Basically, that sums up almost all of the festivals. All right. So I want to talk about where Purim comes from. So a pur is a lot. You know, like when you draw, kind of like drawing straws. And it seemed like you're making a decision just by chance, you know, by pulling the lot. It was actually used biblically, for example, when they had to pick which disciple would replace Judas. And they cast lots for that. But it was also used, you know, Satan always tries to counterfeit the things of God. And so the counterfeit to that was the pur was also like a Babylonian dice that was thrown, used to determine dates and things like that, and to seek guidance from their gods. And the cool thing about Purim is it's very much related to Passover. How is Purim related to Passover? So the thing that we see in Scripture is that when Haman got so angry that he wanted to destroy all the Jews, and he sent out this edict saying that, you know, he cast the pur to find out what date the Jews would be destroyed, which was the 12th of Adar. But when did he find that out? And when did he send out the edict? It was in the first month, on the 13th day. Now, what is significant about the first month, which is Nisan, and the 13th day is right. It would be, that evening, they would be having their first Leil Seder. They would be having their first Passover Seder. So just think about the mercy of God in that. You know, they're receiving terrible news. They're receiving the news that they may all likely die. But when did they receive the news? It was when they're sitting down celebrating God's deliverance of their people from Pharaoh. And I think the timing of God is perfect. That's what I get out of this. Sometimes we feel like our lives are so random, like everything's just happening, whatever. But the timing of God is perfect. When we look at the timing of everything that happens in the story of Esther, we see that it's perfect. And so when the people got news that they were going to be annihilated, they were sitting down at their Passover Seder, celebrating the fact that God delivered them from Egypt. And so I think that they probably thought, the same God who delivered us from Pharaoh in Egypt will deliver us from Haman. So this I think is the first sign that we have about God's mercy, even though he is not even mentioned. The name of God is not even mentioned in the book of Esther, and yet he's there. So that's the next thing that I want to talk about, is about when God is hidden. So Esther's name comes from this Hebrew word that means hidden or covered. All right? This is this word, for those of you who can read a little bit of Hebrew, the aleph in front of the samech tav resh means I will. So I will hide. I will hide. This root word of the samech tav resh, seter elyon, is that hidden secret place in God. See, Esther is all about things that are hidden, and it's all about secrets and mysteries, and God is the revealer of secrets and mysteries. So this is a big theme behind Purim and behind Esther. And in Psalm 13:2 it says, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?" And there's the word again, Hester, tastir. This is the same root word of hide, hidden. And God is totally hidden in the book of Esther. In fact, the book of Esther almost didn't make it into the Bible because God is never mentioned. God's name is never mentioned. The closest it ever comes to mentioning God is when Mordecai said, if you don't speak up, deliverance will come from the Jews from another place. That is the closest that it ever comes to referring to God as even being a part of this whole story. So one of the names of God is Jehovah Shammah, which means God is there. Sham is there. So it means that whatever is going on in our lives, see, I can't look at the Torah. I can't read the Torah without thinking, what's God saying to me? What's God trying to teach me about my life? How's God trying to help me through this right now? And this is it. One is what we mentioned before. God's timing is perfect. He knows. He's setting things up. And the other is, even if God is hidden, he's there. He is Jehovah Shammah. And when we don't see the answers to prayer, when we are in trouble, when we don't see God and he's hidden, we have to say, God, I know you're there. God, I know you're with me. God, you said you never leave me, never forsake me. You are Jehovah Shammah. You are the God who is there. I don't see you. I don't feel you. I don't see you doing anything. But you're there. You are there and you are with me. He is Immanuel, with us, God. He is always with us. And this is our comfort and this is our confidence to walk through the things that we have to walk through. And it says the righteous, the tzaddikim, shall live not by sight but by faith. We don't have to see God to know that he's there. In fact, that was the sin of the Egel Hazahav, the sin of the golden calf. They wanted a God they could see. See, because they were still babies. They were still such babies that if Ima went around the corner, they start crying. We have to see Ima. Oh, we have to see Mommy. Or she's not there. You know how they are when they're little, right? And that's how Israel was. They were like babies and, Moses up on the mountain and they needed a God they could see. So they fashioned the golden calf. We got to grow up. I can't, maybe about a month ago or something, God just started to speak to me and it was like, grow up. Grow up, Hannah. I want you to grow up a little bit. And that means that we got to grow up to know that even if we don't see him, he is at work. He is behind the scenes and he is at work. So some of, not only the secret, the secrecy of God being hidden, and Esther's name meaning hidden one, but there's all these secret identities. This is why we wear masks on Purim, we put on costumes. It's about secret identities. So Esther, as Hadassah, was a Jewish girl, but Mordecai told her, don't tell anyone you're Jewish. Don't reveal your identity. And so Esther's identity was hidden. I think this relates to us because we also have an identity. We are hidden in the Messiah. And we have a secret identity because the Word of God says that we are a royal priesthood. Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh, right? A royal priesthood, a holy nation. We are royal daughters of the King. And yet, how do we see ourselves? So often, so small, so little, so insignificant, so inadequate. We're always like, I'm always like, do I look okay? Is my hair? I can't do this. We're like that because we have a hidden identity that we are royal daughters of the King. And we need to see ourselves that way. And we need to rise up into our calling and into our true identity so that we can be a blessing to the world, because God's given each one so many gifts and callings that He wants to use for His glory to bless the world, and yet we keep those things hidden. Sometimes there's a timing. Sometimes there is a season for everything. There is a time and a season for everything. There's time when that would remain hidden, and then there's a time to step out into that, just as it was for Esther. Esther also, she was this little Jewish orphan girl. And yet, how did God see her? God saw her as a beautiful queen, as the future queen of Persia who would save her nation. And yet she saw herself as just a little Jewish orphan girl. And I think that if we also look at the Christian body of Messiah, there's also that hidden identity within the church, that they also don't have a full understanding of their connection with the Jewish people, the covenantal connection, and their kind of moral obligation to be praying and interceding for the Jewish people because we are connected by covenant through the Jewish Messiah. That's also been hidden and a secret thing which is now being revealed. All right. So now I want to talk about the types. And this is on your handout that you have about shadows, pictures and shadows. The books of the Torah. I see that the people and the figures there are prophetic for our day-to-day. And I'm surprised at how many Christians just have not read the book of Ruth. They've not read the book of Esther. And they're missing so much. Yes? Handout? Oh, yes, here. Does anybody else need a handout? I'm not going to follow this exactly, but I do want to talk about Esther and Vashti and Mordecai and Haman and see how they relate to us today. All right, we'll start with the bad news, okay? We're going to start with Vashti. So I believe that Vashti represents the apostate church. She is living in the royal palace. She's living in the palace of the king, but she's got her own agenda, right? She's having her own party. And she's so busy with her own party that she doesn't want to come when the king calls her. And so spiritually, this is representing the apostate church that lives in the house of the king, but has her own agenda, has her own program, and does not come at the king's command. Too busy with doing her own thing. And also, the beauty is only superficial. The beauty is only external. Vashti must have been a beautiful woman for the king to want to show her off to everybody. But that beauty was only skin deep, as they say. Inside, her character was rebellious and proud and disobedient. And so her rebellion and disobedience and contempt, it was contagious. And that's the problem with that kind of stuff, is it's very contagious. And so she was encouraging the other women to also be rebellious towards authority and towards their husbands. And so she had to be banished from the kingdom. She was banished from the kingdom in a state of shame. And she was being replaced by the faithful bride. And I think this is a word for each one of us, because God is looking for that faithful bride who is obedient, whose beauty is not just external, but it's the beauty, the character of a gentle and quiet spirit that is so pleasing to the Lord. And so, in contrast to Vashti, there's Esther. And Esther represents the true and the faithful bride of the king. She knows her identity. She knows who her people are. This is the body of Messiah that really knows who they are. And they know their connection to the Jewish people. She was obedient to Mordecai. When Mordecai said, don't tell anyone that you're Jewish, she was obedient. So this is the faithful bride. And she was an orphan. And her beauty was inside also. One of the things about Esther is that she went through this time of preparation. You know, she had these beauty treatments, right? How many of you would like a whole year's worth of beauty treatments, right? And me, I'll be at the first of the line. The thing is, it says she was given beauty treatments, but also with myrrh. 6 months of treatments with myrrh. And myrrh, biblically, it represents suffering. And, you know, each one of us are being prepared to be that beautiful bride, that beautiful spotless bride, that virgin for the King. And sometimes, in order to be prepared for Him, not only do we get beauty treatments, but part of our beauty comes through suffering. And this is something that we don't like to talk about a lot, because we all just want to be, you know, happy and free of all cares, right? But Yeshua told us that we would have trouble in this life. And we do sometimes go through suffering. And it's how we look at it. You know, if we going through some pain and some suffering, we can either see this as something that we hate and we just want to run away from, or we can accept that as that this is part of our beauty preparation. Because sometimes it's only through suffering that we learn obedience. It says even Yeshua learned obedience through the things that He suffered. And sometimes we share in His sufferings. And if we look at that the right way, we'll understand that through these sufferings, which are just light and momentary compared to the glory that we will receive in eternity. And I think that helps me to, when I sometimes question God, well, why do I have this pain? Why do I have this suffering? Why? And you haven't taken it away yet. Well,